What is up guys, welcome back to another video, and today's video isn't necessarily a technique training video, but it is very important for your training, and that is recovery essentially. And in this video I've titled it Train Smarter Not Harder, and that's because I want to mention an issue that I see a lot, and I have a few friends that do it, and it's kind of generally online, and that is the issue of not recovering properly. So there is a phrase that is undertraining will give you slow progress, overtraining will give you no progress. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't get. A lot of people associate going to the gym more with more progress. However, that isn't really the case. You recover when you're not at the gym. All those gains and adaptations that you're training for, you receive when you're recovering, not when you're training. So you see all the time on social media people say like, oh, I didn't feel like training today, but I had a coffee and I went in and I smashed it anyway. And like it's a good thing, but in reality I think those people are probably doing more harm than good to themselves and their progress, simply because their body is not ready and they're just straight up ignoring it. If you're tired and you're fatigued and you're sore, then the likelihood is that training actually is not going to help that state. If anything, it's going to make it worse, and it's going to lead to maladaptation. And that is the principle of supercompensation, which is what we are trying to get out of our training, and this is what we're trying to optimize when we are training. So supercompensation happens in 4 phases. The first phase is our training phase. So we start at this baseline level of performance. In this first stage, when we train, our muscles get fatigued and our performance drops generally in that training session. So we're going to get this drop in performance, but this is not necessarily a bad thing. This is what is stressing our body. It's stressing the musculoskeletal system, it's stressing your nervous system, it's stressing your endocrine system. And this is important. We get stressed all the time and our body adapts to it, which is why we are training in the first place. But these adaptations happen in stage 2, which is the recovery phase. So when we get to that peak bad level of performance underneath, we then start to recover, and then if the volume in our training is high enough and we have trained with sufficient intensity, then we will enter into stage 3, which is the first stage of supercompensation. So we go from training and we go to like a trough, a low level of performance. We recover, and then as we recover, our body adapts to become stronger, and we go above that standard level of performance, and we get this sort of supercompensation effect that our body adapts to that training stimulus and our performance actually gets better than it was before. Is then the point at which you want to train, and then we start the cycle again and our performance will decrease, and then we recover and it will increase slightly, and then we train again. So the idea here is then you keep kind of spiraling up and up and up and up, and we keep progressing and getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and everything is perfect. Although this doesn't always happen, because a lot of the time we will train a little bit too early and we're not quite recovered and our performance hasn't got back up to that level or above that level, and then simply all we do is we go down lower again, and then we under recover again and we go down lower, and instead of spiraling up and improving and progressing, we spiral all the way down, and that is what's called overtraining. Supercompensation is all well and good, but how do we tell when we are recovered, and how do we time our next training session appropriately to maximize the supercompensation? So as a general rule of thumb, there are generally 2 ways to assess whether you're fully recovered, and that is your muscular system and your nervous system. So the muscular system is really obvious, and I'm sure most people probably pay attention to this, and this is essentially how sore, fatigued do you feel? Like when you move your chest or your lats, do you feel like it's really painful and really sore and really tight, and you kind of feel a little bit of pain when you're moving? That's generally a sign that you've got some muscular damage there, which is not necessarily a bad thing because we want to recover from that. That's why we train. But there's generally a sign that you're not quite recovered yet. So as a general rule of thumb, you shouldn't have any muscle soreness from 48 to 72 hours post-training. So this is 2 to 3 days, our muscular system should be recovered. If you're sore for any longer than this, then you might want to adjust your training appropriately. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you want to train on a more frequent basis, which I think is probably more beneficial for building strength and generally progressing quicker, then you want to be tailoring back your volume so you don't feel sore at a maximum of 72 hours, but ideally around that 48-hour mark, you should start feeling like you're ready to go and you're feeling strong and you want to smash your next work. So that is our muscular system. The next is our nervous system. Now this is a little bit harder to figure out unless you're very in tune with your body. However, there is a very quantifiable way that we can test our nervous system, and that is through heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is something that I've used for the last 6 to 8 months maybe. I do it every single morning, and I use that to inform how I'm going to train and what I'm going to train essentially. So heart rate variability looks at variability in your heart rate due to your breathing. So when you breathe in, your heart rate generally increases, and this is because there is more oxygen in your system, so your body's trying to pump that oxygen about your body. And then when you breathe out, there's more CO2, less oxygen in your body, and your heart rate generally decreases. So you have this nice kind of like curve of heart rate increase and heart rate decrease. If you are well recovered and your nervous system is in balance, so this balance would be the balance between your sympathetic, your breaking down, your catabolic, your fight and flight nervous system, and your parasympathetic, which is the building up, the rest and digest, the recovery nervous system. If those are in balance, you're going to have a good variability between the two. If you're sympathetic dominant or you're dominant in one, you're not actually going to have much of a variability and you're going to have a very small curve. That is a sign that you're out of balance in one way or the other. Generally, most people will be sympathetically biased, so that means they're more stressed out. This is the sort of thing that happens when you train. If you were to measure your heart rate straight after training, you'd be like, shit, why? I'm never doing that again. Look at my body, it is literally in pieces. But that is the stress response that we need to then force that adaptation. The issue is when that stress response becomes long-term. So how do we measure heart rate variability? Well, measuring heart rate variability is extremely simple. All you need is an app on your phone and preferably a heart rate monitor, like this one that I have here that goes around your chest. If you don't have a heart rate monitor, a lot of the apps will use your camera on your phone and the flashlight to determine your pulse rate. As I said, I perform this every morning. I simply get up, leave it about 10 minutes. It's always good to do it at the same time of day, by the way. I think first thing in the morning when you're lying down is the best. Wait 10 minutes when you get up. I then grab my chest strap it around my chest, connect it with the Bluetooth on my phone, open up the app, and I spend 3 to 5 minutes measuring my heart rate variability. And what this looks like on the app is it gives you a breathing gauge telling you when to breathe in and breathe out. And all you do is you breathe with that gauge, and the app measures the difference between your heart rate when you're breathing in and breathing out, and it will give you a score as well as all the metrics that it's measured to make that score. Now this is a really nice way to summarize and see how balanced your nervous systems are. So if you get a good heart rate variability, you've got lots of heart rate variability, as I said, it generally shows that your muscular system, your nervous system is in balance and you're probably recovered and good to go training. If you have a bad heart rate variability score, then it's not going to be as imbalanced and maybe it's time to recover a bit more or take it slower. So that is what I would recommend. There is a link in the description down below to the app I use, the chest strap that I use in particular that you guys can grab. It's about £30 I think to buy, and the app is free. And as I said, you can use your finger on the camera as well. So how do we use this information to influence our training? Well, as I said, the app gives you a score and it basically creates this baseline level. So this is like your standard level of heart rate variability. What we're looking for here is when we want to train, we want our heart rate variability to be either equal to our baseline or better. And that better would mean that we are improving. If our heart rate is below, as I said, maybe not quite fully recovered. So how does this impact on our training? So if our heart rate is at our baseline level or above, I would say it's safe to follow the plan of action that you had for that day. If it's quite a way above, then maybe even increase the intensity of that workout because your nervous system is particularly in balance on that day. So we don't have to worry about those higher readings or equal to our baseline readings as long as it isn't decreasing. So if it starts off at maybe 10 and it's slowly going down, then maybe we need to take a deload to bring it back up. But if you're constantly hitting that baseline level and it's constantly staying about the same, then your training's probably fine and you're adapting well to the stress. If, as I said, the score that we get is below our baseline level, if it's only slightly below, it's probably okay to train, but limit the intensity. Take some of the volume, take a deload day maybe, and do half the amount of volume in the same intensity. If it's dramatically below our baseline, then it's probably a good sign that we are stressed out, we're out of balance, and maybe it's time to take a day off and have another day of recovery and really focus on building ourselves back up to smash the next training set. As I said, if we have a decrease for a long period of time, which sometimes is usual to see on a training cycle, then it's a good sign that we're in need of a deload week. You either then have that deload week where you half the intensity or half the volume, or if you're like me currently, you take an entire week off. So that is how I would assess. So we've got to assess our muscular recovery. How sore do you feel? Do you feel like you're strong today? And then using heart rate variability to assess our nervous system recovery. As I briefly mentioned there, I am currently taking an entire week off training. I had a training session yesterday and I just felt really bad. I just didn't feel good doing it. My heart rate variability was down this morning, and I just think it's time to take a step back, do nothing related to planche, handstands or anything. I'm just going to take a full week. I'm going to get a massage, I'm going to do lots of yoga. I'm just going to chill out really, and I'm just going to make sure my nervous system is properly recovered, properly balanced before I smash my next training cycle. So this is essentially a training reset for this week for me personally, and that is all based on my heart rate variability. I've seen like a trivial kind of decrease over the last few weeks, and I think it's just time. And then I can start afresh when I start the new program, which I will be releasing shortly. If you want to follow along my training reset, I probably will be posting a video onto YouTube kind of summarizing what I do each day. If you're interested in that, then leave a comment. If not, I will be posting every day what I'm doing on Instagram, so go over to @movementtom, drop a follow and check it out on there. But that is it for today's video, guys. As always, everything I talk about, the app, the heart rate monitor that I use, also some links to additional articles if you're interested, will be in the description. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you have anything you'd like to say, any questions you'd like to ask, then join the conversation in the comment section down below. And if you have that friend who's in the gym 7 days a week and doesn't know what recovery is, then why not share this video with him and enlighten him, and maybe you'll help him perform better. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a strong week and peace.